Sometimes I need to be reminded of the fact that it is indeed 2025, almost 2026 even. I planned to simply hop into today's topic straight away, without getting into any backstory, until I realized that a lot of you guys probably don't even know who I'm talking about, so I guess I'll give you a quick primer. There's a white nationalist former YouTuber named Millennial Woes, who was very active in the 2010s. I say former YouTuber because he was permabanned off the site entirely. He still makes content over on Rumble and other alt-tech platforms, but he's been fully pushed out of the mainstream. By my recollection, Millennial Woes came to prominence in 2015 as a part of the alt-right, which was, at that time, a rising force in online Western politics. He made video essays promoting white nationalist and conspiracy theorist points of view, and he also dabbled in the internet blood sports trend of the late 2010s, debating both liberals and communists. I first heard of him due to two reasons. One, Sargon's debates with him back when Sargon was a liberal.
I think that it's immoral to judge people based on their race, and I think you think it is as well.
Incorrect.
And two, Kraut's old videos against him, also from a liberal point of view. Millennial Woes' decline came about due to the 1-2 punch of the British nationalist group Patriotic Alternative cutting ties with him after sexual misconduct allegations in 2020, and YouTube permabanning his channel in 2021. There is a lot of deep lore on this guy, including some that's actually in his favor. For example, in 2017, while his channel was popping off, he was doxxed, not by some internet randoms, but by mainstream British news outlets. Like, you know what? As much as I think Millennial Woes is a slimeball, doxing him for no fucking reason is ridiculous. Doubly so if it's from mainstream journalists. But this video isn't about the deep lore of Millennial Woes. Maybe we'll cover that another day. Despite his mainstream reach being castrated since 2021, he still retains a sizable Twitter following, and his most recent blip on the radar was when he coined this meme. Back in February of 2025, he posted, "It's amazing how much leftist discourse is just them pretending not to understand things, thus making discourse impossible." And oh boy, did this tweet take off in right-wing spaces. Ever since this dropped, right-wing accounts have regularly reposted screen caps of the meme, underneath tweets that they believe were doing exactly this. People, presumably leftists, pretending not to know what's going on, thus making discourse impossible. And let's give the devil his due. This absolutely does happen, with enough regularity that you can see the pattern. I've even experienced it. I've been arguing with leftists, and I've had moments where they just go dumb. Like they don't want to admit a flaw in their argument, so they just say, "I don't know, I've never heard about that, what do you mean?" Here, I'll give you a relatively high-profile example so we're all on the same page. Here's a clip of progressive comedian Adam Conover on Tim Pool recently.
In this regard...
So wait, you're saying simply the fact that Marco Rubio exercised his legal authority to do something was good. It's like he had the legal authority to do it. He could have enforced this law as he saw it on anybody. He could have enforced it on a comedian, right? Who's in town and goes on stage and says, "Hey, you know what? I disagree with this or that." Or, "Hey, I just did shows in
Canada,
I just did what?
You're not from Canada.
No, but I just did shows in the UK and Amsterdam, and I made fun of UK politics, made fun of American politics."
You wouldn't dare make fun of Islam, though. Go to the UK and mock Islam. Do it.
Well, I don't have any jokes about Islam.
Why not? They got Pakistani grooming gangs for raping little girls. Why won't you go to the UK?
What?
Why won't you go to the UK and make jokes about Islam?
I don't think it's very funny. I don't have any jokes about it. I'm so confused. Dude.
Okay, let me help unconfuse you. Are there jokes that can be made about Islam? Yes or no?
Wait, I don't want to. No? I don't want to go to this particular rabbit hole.
Oh no! You're terrified. You're a hypocrite.
What?
Are there jokes you can make about Islam? Muhammad banged a little girl, right?
I'm really baffled.
Come on. You're terrified of the subject. I'm not.
No, I'm not.
In the UK, you can be jailed for making jokes about Islam or even bring up the grooming gangs. There are people who go online and pointed out that a stabbing was carried out by a Muslim, and they got arrested for it. I'll bet you $1,000 you will not go to the UK and make a joke about any of that stuff. Because you will not go to a foreign country and in violation of their laws, speak out against what they've said not to speak out against. Do it. I dare you. $10,000. Cash in your pocket if you go to the UK and make a joke about Muhammad having a 12-year-old wife.
This we got here faster than I thought we would in this conversation. Where you're shouting at me about something I don't understand. I don't really understand how you would think it's incumbent upon me.
Do you think anybody watching this right now thinks you are confused by the notion that in the UK you go to jail for mocking Islam?
I don't understand how we got onto you shouting at me about Islam specifically, I'd like to return to the
Okay,
point I
it's
was trying to
because
make.
you said people should be allowed to come to this country and
Yeah.
speak out against it. And you said
I
you're a
think-
comedian, and you're a
I
comedian, and you
think
go to
that-
other countries, right? And you said you go to the UK, and I said, okay, if you go to the UK, speak out in violation of their laws and see what happens. And you said, I'm confused, I don't understand. What don't you understand?
Now listen, I don't like Tim Pool. I think he's a conspiracy-brained Trump cocksleeve. And you know what? I also don't like Adam Conover. I think he's a spineless progressive cuck. But Tim absolutely won this exchange. Do you know what the actual pro-comedy, pro-free speech, speaking truth to power position is on this topic? It is to say, yes, I will in fact make fun of Islam. I will mock Muhammad and his disgusting pedophilic tendencies with his 9-year-old wife. There is absolutely a progressive double standard here, where they're willing to make fun of Christianity or white people because those are apparently oppressive and dominant groups, but they won't make fun of Islam or brown people because those are minorities, and whatever they do, it's just their culture. Notice how the Millennial Woes meme maps onto this exchange. When the conversation is in an area that Adam's comfortable with, he's clearly very confident in his tone of voice, his body language, his rigorous defense of free speech, and of the comedian's duty to make fun of those in power. But when the conversation shifts, when Tim starts bringing up things that progressives wouldn't make fun of, either because it offends progressive sensibilities, or it would be too risque to say, take your pick, suddenly Adam begins to look and act confused. He doesn't know what's going on. What's all this? What do you mean? Jokes about Islam? And the conversation immediately grinds to a halt. Discourse becomes impossible, at least until the confusion is cleared up. And Adam seems to be doing his best here to make sure the confusion is not cleared up, by continuously saying, I don't get it. What does this have to do with the topic? Now, there's two possibilities here. One, Adam truly doesn't get it. This is, in my opinion, unlikely. Adam is a relatively well-educated and well-traveled guy. He keeps his finger on the pulse of at least American politics. It's not unreasonable to assume he's at least heard of the Islamic grooming gang problem in the UK, even if he disagrees with how the British right views that problem. The second possibility is that Adam does get it. He's just pretending to be confused as a tactic, which is what the Millennial Woes meme asserts. As Adam acts more confused, Tim has to pivot the conversation away from the point he's trying to make, that Adam holds a double standard when it comes to comedy's sacred role in speaking truth to power, in order to explain to Adam what's happening in the UK, to explain why the point Tim has made is actually a valid criticism of Adam's position. Because when Adam says, I don't understand, that serves as a way to dodge that criticism. And the more Adam says, I don't get it, the more time is wasted on this pit stop, preventing the discussion of the actual idea from going forward. There's many instances of this meme being used accurately, or at least internally consistently, from a right-wing point of view. Here's one that I saw today. Asmongold was reacting to Pokimane buying an engagement ring for herself. Yes, she's doing that lonely feminist thing of announcing her own marriage to herself, as a self-empowering move that we've seen happen occasionally here and there. Asmongold's take was that this action of Pokimane's was sad. Virtual Gemma, another Twitch streamer, hopped in and said, aren't you 35, single, and have the dirtiest room in the planet? How is a girl getting herself a designer ring sad and depressing? And then the ANCAP content creator Fabian Liberty responded with the Millennial Woes meme. Now to me, it's pretty obvious how it applies here. The obfuscating question meant to impede discourse is when Virtual Gemma said, how is a girl getting herself a designer ring sad and depressing? Because if you look at it only from that surface level analysis, it's not actually sad and depressing. If you want to have a certain look, and you buy yourself accessories to achieve that look, that's very normal. But everyone knows we're not actually talking about the ring itself. It's about what the ring means. An engagement ring has a specific meaning beyond just the physical ring. It's a symbol of the relationship between the two people involved. It's a statement of commitment. The fact that Pokimane is explicitly buying that symbol without the relationship and publicly stating she's getting engaged to herself, at that point, the conversation isn't about the physical ring. It's about Pokimane's lack of a relationship and how these behaviors are evidence that she's probably actually pretty lonely in her private life. That's why Asmongold said it was sad. And we all know this intuitively, but Virtual Gemma asking this question that we all know the answer to meant that I had to spend a paragraph of this script explaining what's actually going on here. This is why it's an obfuscating question meant to impede discourse. There's lots of examples like this, by the way. A person who posts a video of outdoor restaurants using tents to shield their clients from bad weather and asking, so eating in a tent is okay, but not if you're homeless? We all know the difference between a paying customer and a homeless squatter. The aesthetics of a tent don't change that. When Muslims march through an airport shouting Allah Akbar, and someone asks, why are you all so weirded out by people saying God is great? We all know it's not about the literal translation of the phrase. It's about the fact that it's commonly used in public spaces in conjunction with Islamic terrorist attacks, which again, we all understand. During that whole eating rice with your bare hands is third world behavior conversation, which I discussed in my Mamdani video, people began to say that sometimes the way the Japanese eat nigiri or the Koreans eat sam could be considered eating rice with your bare hands. But we all know that using your hand to shovel sloppy food into your mouth is a different style of eating than picking up a fully formed solid rice ball or something. And the fact that both of them use the hand as the delivery vehicle for the food is not actually addressing the difference between these two styles. This is why the Millennial Woes meme became a meme. There is no shortage of left-wingers on social media who seem to be purposely ignoring obvious differences between the two things being contrasted in order to make a relatively superficial point that doesn't even address the meat of the argument. However, what if I told you that oftentimes this meme is actually just wrong? For example, here's the neo-reactionary account, Kofefe Anon, saying, at some point in the not too distant future, we're going to have to choose between solving the actual extremely real horrible problems our society is mired in, and preserving a legal system that makes it impossible to solve them. What he's saying is the West's problems are so severe that even the basic protections of constitutions, or the rule of law, or due process, will make solving these problems impossible. Therefore, in his view, it will be necessary to go outside of the bounds of constitutions and laws in order to fix these problems. Of course, sometimes this can be true in some extreme emergency circumstance. What's actually happening here is that this guy wants an excuse, real or manufactured, to set aside the law and the constitution and norms because they are obstacles in the way of his faction doing whatever they want. Kofefe Anon received a mocking reply from James Surowiecki saying, "Why do they call us fascists?" Obviously a rhetorical question. Now, I don't expect this guy to understand the difference between a neo-reactionary and a fascist. To normies, any sort of anti-democratic action is fascism, so whatever. The point is, he has accurately identified this anti-democratic desire. And then James was replied to with, "You call people fascists to justify murder and terrorism, it's not deep," with the Millennial Woes meme in tow. This time, though, do you think the meme actually works here? On the one hand, it is absolutely the case that at least some left-leaning people, including a lot of Antifa, call anyone they disagree with fascist as a pretense to attack them, whether or not they actually are a fascist. This is a well-documented phenomenon, going back just as far as Millennial Woes' own online career. There's a reason why the Antifa riots of the late 2010s attacked everyone indiscriminately. In fact, there's this interview with a former Antifa member going viral right now that explains the mindset pretty well.
They say they're going to kill someone, or they think it's justified to attack someone because they're a fascist, for example.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like, whether it's people deserve to die, they have no human rights. It's like calling someone a Nazi or a fascist. It's a way to just dehumanize them. You can do whatever to them. You can assault them. It's funny to them. They laugh about it. They don't kill you because you're a fascist. They call you a fascist so they can kill you.
But on the other hand, is James actually asking the rhetorical question, why do they call us fascists, in response to Kofefe Anon's anti-democratic sentiment, as a way to pretend to not understand things and make discourse impossible? Does the meme apply? I don't think so. Let's set aside James's improper use of fascist, because he's a normie, and in normie speak what he means is anti-democratic. Most normies just use fascism to describe any type of dictatorship, fascist or not. Is the message by Kofefe Anon an expression of anti-democratic values? Yes, obviously. It's not fascist in the academic sense, but is it in the colloquial sense? Sure. So what is he pretending not to know here to make the meme work? It turns out, oftentimes this meme is used when people's criticism of a right-wing position is accurate and justified, but the right-wingers coming to the defense of that position don't actually have anything coherent to defend it with. So instead they say, "Oh, you're just pretending not to understand what we're saying." No, I get it, bro. You're expressing the opinions of a tyrant, and then you're complaining you're being treated like a tyrant. It's not that deep. This meme is also used to uncover for frankly pretty shit political views. For example, the Christian nationalist influencer, Lauren Witzke, posted a video of Indian immigrants shopping at Costco, claiming that unchecked immigration has done this to America since 1965. She was, of course, slapped with a reply, "Oh my god, look, it's Indian shopping at Costco." By the way, isn't Witzke a German name? So how is it fine for you to stay, but not for them? Let me guess, skin color's the difference, right? And then he was replied to with the Millennial Woes meme. But here's the thing, he's not misunderstanding anything. A lot of what Witzke says is animated by some form of racism. She just doesn't want immigrants around. You can understand the necessity of deporting illegal immigrants without being cruel about it, but for her, the cruelty seems to be the point. More importantly for our conversation, though, is that the use of the meme here makes no sense. Nothing is being pretend misunderstood. Nothing is actually being misunderstood either. Asking her, "You just don't want non-whites around, right?" is a relevant question. And everyone on all sides of this conversation knows the answer is yes. But since it's terrible optics to just say that, they fall back on the meme. And sometimes the meme is incorrectly posted as a reply to genuine confusion. For example, Ilhan Omar said that the idea that America is a white nation that must be preserved is disgusting. Nathan Robinson, the editor of Current Affairs magazine, asked on Twitter, why is this even controversial? And he was slapped with the meme. Now again, let's give the devil his due. Are there problems with integration when immigration levels are too high? Absolutely. Are there cultural practices brought over by some immigrants that are incompatible with a high-trust, liberal, democratic, capitalist society? Absolutely. But also, are there people out there who genuinely do just think that preserving white nations as white ethnostates is inherently good, rather than immigration levels, whether high or low, being morally neutral? Absolutely. Personally, I don't think that Nathan Robinson is educated on right-wing internet schizo brain rot. So him asking this question is probably legitimate. I don't think he's pretending not to know. He legit doesn't. In fact, every time I see an instance where the meme might make sense, I also see instances where it's clearly being used as a deflection tactic by bad faith actors who can't argue their position. In my opinion, most of the time the Millennial Woes meme is used, it's not because the user has accurately identified a leftist who is pretending not to know what's being asked in order to make discourse impossible. Rather, it's being used to preemptively block an incoming line of questioning that the user doesn't want to engage with. It's a rejection of any reasonable argument that doesn't uncritically accept right-wing positions as truth, without any questioning. Here's what I mean. J.K. Rowling posted, if you're born with egg-producing equipment, even if faulty, you're a woman. And she received a reply consisting of a picture of a platypus, which is an animal that produces eggs, with the caption, woman. Is this a leftist who is pretending not to know what J.K. Rowling is saying in order to make discourse impossible? Many right-wingers would say yes, obviously. We all know that J.K. Rowling's talking about adult human females here, not other species. Okay, maybe. But at the same time, this is also a classic form of proof by contradiction, or reductio ad absurdum if you're a Latin nerd. In prop logic, proof by contradiction is a formal form of argumentation that seeks to show how following a proposition leads to absurdity or contradiction. Basically, if X is true, then you naturally get this ridiculous outcome, therefore X can't be true. What's being said here with the platypus is that J.K. Rowling's argument is not specific enough to back up the claim she's making, because one logical endpoint of her argument is that the platypus is a woman. What this is a call to J.K. Rowling to tighten up her argument and try again. The Millennial Woes meme simply assumes that J.K. Rowling's intended endpoint is correct, and that all the other possible logical endpoints of her argument, as it is currently written, are unintended by her, and therefore you can ignore them. And of course, if you don't ignore them, you're trying to obfuscate the conversation. You're acting in bad faith by not engaging with the actual intended argument. Once again, this can be true sometimes, but a lot of the time, what's being hand-waved away in those unintended logical endpoints can actually be quite important. In fact, they often disprove the main claim, which is why so many right-wingers use this meme. It's a way to hide discrepancies in their arguments. Of course, there are examples of this too. That moral heat maps meme that I've done videos on in the past, it's a treasure trove of contradictory right-wing takes. Here's the basics. The heat map shows that conservatives have more moral consideration for those that are closer to them. Their immediate family, then their extended family, then their friends, then their acquaintances and coworkers, then their countrymen, then strangers, then animals, then possible alien life, and then the universe itself on the outer perimeter. Meanwhile, liberals have their moral consideration allocated inversely towards those groups that are further away from them rather than closer to them. Right-wingers say that this shows liberals have suicidal pathological empathy towards strangers and outsiders, which is why they invite in people from foreign countries who don't share Western values, who will in fact subvert Western values because of this liberal, suicidal, empathetic love of the foreign. Okay, there are some problems here, but for the sake of argument, let's assume this is all true. The Rightoids are just correct in this interpretation of things. With this understanding, try answering this question. Was it a good thing for the father of the killer of Charlie Kirk to turn his son into the police? Intuitively, everyone says yes, but think back to the heat maps again. To the father, his son is his son. He occupies the inner circle of that graph. But Charlie Kirk is not his family, his friend, his acquaintance, his coworker. He's a stranger. Why should the father value justice for Charlie Kirk over his son's life, from the conservative point of view? You have to exit the conservative frame to come to the position that it's more moral to turn your son into the cops because he murdered a stranger than it is not to because he is your son. Because according to the heat maps, that is just how conservative morality is allocated. And by the way, the Rightoids know this, because when they talk about, for example, the grooming gang crisis in the UK, they talk about it in the exact same terms. The grooming gangs, predominantly made up of Muslims from Pakistan, sometimes other Islamic countries too, carried out a campaign of grooming, pimping, and trafficking young English girls. They openly admitted it's because they don't place any moral consideration on these young English girls, because they're strangers. And other members of these immigrant communities that weren't involved in the gangs, but still knew of them, did not report their activity to the police because the gang members were part of their family and the victims were strangers. These groomers operate using the same moral principle that conservatives shit on liberals for not having: preference towards their own family at the expense of strangers. There are more examples of this, but let's just cut to the chase. When you point out these contradictions in their thinking, they slap you with that Millennial Woes meme. Not because you're actually pretending not to understand, but because these guys are basically really simple thinkers. They're like NPCs. They have their preset script they follow, it leads them to their desired endpoints in these different conversations, and it's only when you compare the various conversations that you recognize they're actually contradicting each other. And because they can't reconcile their own contradictions, they act like you're the ignorant one for not getting it, or that you're the malicious one for pretending that you don't get it, when you obviously do, of course. Who possibly couldn't understand the schizophrenic nonsense? But most importantly of all, right-wingers actually do the meme themselves all the fucking time. They pretend to be ignorant to make discourse impossible. I can even show how this is the case using one of my own takes. I had this tweet go viral recently. Yes, everyone, that's me. I'm the famous one here. Autographs will be available after the video's over, and please drop off your girlfriends backstage. The Fox News clip that I'm replying to says that if you want a second type of meat at your Thanksgiving dinner this year, you must remember that prices are still going up. For example, Fox News here claims that beef is on average 5 times as expensive as it was this time a year ago in the States. This clip is a simple news report of inflation under Trump's administration. In response, I posted a joke saying this comic is getting an obscene amount of use during Trump's second term. The comic is from the early weeks of Trump's second term. Egg prices at that time were skyrocketing, not because of anything that Biden or Trump did, but because an outbreak of bird flu on some poultry farms in the States required the slaughtering of waves of chickens in order to prevent the virus from spreading into the food supply. As a result, chicken and eggs were both more expensive until production could ramp up again. The issue is that this event took place during the tail end of Biden's term and the beginning of Trump's. During Biden's term, right-wingers screamed bloody murder about affordability, how Biden ruined the economy, and they were constantly reposting clips of Trump saying he'll fix inflation on day one. And then, as soon as Trump comes into office, suddenly all these right-wing influencers were far more understanding of economics, and how the supply chain works, and how it's not actually the president's fault for everything all the time. That is what this comic is making fun of, not egg prices specifically. It's about how right-wingers blindly blame the president and the government when Biden was in office, but they give the maximum amount of charitability to the government when Trump's in charge. It's a meme about right-wing hypocrisy, and as I said, it's going to get a lot of use during Trump's second term. The reason that I reposted the comic was not to make a specific claim about the price of eggs. It's to make a claim that Trump is actually making the economy worse, how that's reflected in the prices of other food, like turkey and beef, as mentioned by Fox News, and how right-wingers suddenly have no complaints about inflation now that Trump is in charge. And while the retweeters absolutely loved this tweet, the commenters fucking hated it. But you know what? Most of the haters below the tweet said the same fucking thing, like they're following an NPC script. Eggs are actually cheap now, LOL. You don't know what you're talking about. Bro, it's not about the eggs specifically. It's about affordability more generally. And you all know this, because the Fox News clip in the OP isn't talking about eggs. It's talking about turkey and beef. But every right-wing retard said the same fucking thing. LOL, eggs are cheap, Lamau. So, per the Millennial Woes meme, what are our options here? Do these people simply not understand what's being said to them? Meaning they're too stupid to understand the context of the Fox News clip saying food's more expensive? Or are these people pretending not to understand in order to make discourse about inflation under Trump impossible? In other words, is it ignorance or is it malice? Now, in my opinion, you'd have to be pretty fucking stupid to not understand the Fox News clip. I'm not putting it past them to be that retarded, but I'm personally guessing it's probably malice. They deflect to egg prices to make discourse impossible, using the most literal, surface-level interpretation of the comic, because they don't want to confront the fact that inflation is beginning to rise again in the United States. It's obviously not as high as the COVID peak yet, but unlike with COVID wrecking the economy, there is no reason for this to be happening, except for Trump's tariffs and his ridiculous trade wars with the entire world. It turns out that right-wingers do actually just do this meme. It's why Millennial Woes himself rejected the possibility of making it nonpartisan. The right not only does it as a matter of course, as my egg post proved, the right falsely accuses others of doing it even as they're fucking doing it themselves. What's actually happened here is that Millennial Woes has stumbled on a rhetorical trick that is clever enough to have caught on and become repostable. And of course, if you do point out that the right is actually guilty of this too, they do the whole, LOL, the left can't meme, they had to steal this meme from us shit. It's exactly as I said in my previous video on that topic. Just because something is mimetic doesn't mean it's true. It can feel true if enough people push it. That doesn't mean that it is. And that is what a lot of online right-wing astroturfing is. It's all attempts to psyop you into feeling like something is true, especially when it isn't. Now, I made the claim that Millennial Woes' meme was the rightoid version of educate yourself shitlord, which is a phrase from early 2010s leftist Tumblr. In retrospect, I was actually wrong here. There is some connective tissue between the two ideas. They're both used as thought-terminating cliches, meant to deflect away from a line of questioning the speaker isn't prepared to go down, or from attacks that the speaker isn't prepared to defend against. But the phrase educate yourself shitlord is more like the inverse of the Millennial Woes meme. The Millennial Woes meme makes the claim the target is only pretending not to get it, while educate yourself makes the claim the target genuinely doesn't get it. In fact, the rightoids who say things like do your own research is the proper equivalent here, as both of them are basically saying I don't need to explain my argument to you. If you don't get it, you're the problem. After thinking about it a little bit more, in actuality, the Millennial Woes meme is more like the right-wing version of sea-lining rather than educate yourself. The phrase sea-lining came about during the original Gamergate back in 2014, from the progressive webcomic Wondermark. In the comic, a man and woman are talking about how much they dislike sea lions, when suddenly a sea lion shows up and politely asks her to have a civil conversation about her hatred of sea lions. She yells at him to go away, and he, again politely, says he just wants an open, honest discourse on the topic. Suddenly, the sea lion is talking to her while she's in bed or while she's eating breakfast, and she's screaming at him to get out of her house, while he says, "I've been nothing but polite. Are you not willing to have a reasonable discussion?" It's true that the comic presents the sea lion as polite sounding, but he's also entirely unwilling to let a public statement on social media just be. He takes every comment as an invitation to debate, while the woman, who represents progressive sensibilities, simply wants the privilege to rant about sea lions in public without being bothered. In my view, they're both wrong in different ways. On the one hand, sometimes a public comment just isn't an invitation to debate. The sea lion isn't owed communication with anyone, even if the person he wants to talk to is being retarded and wrong on the topic in public. But also, it's pretty clear, the woman simply desires an echo chamber where she can speak freely about sea lions and not be challenged. In case it's not obvious, the author intends the sea lion to be a stand-in for males, or gamers, or male gamers. The analysis is the same either way. Both the leftoid who claims they're being sea lioned and the rightoid who reposts the Millennial Woes meme operate in the same way. Their statements and views are being challenged. They're not prepared enough to actually defend their position, so they've built these memes to avoid having to debate. Both of these tactics can be boiled down to complaints about the Socratic method of questioning. The left calls it sea lioning and acts like being challenged is annoying. The right calls it them not understanding and acts like being challenged is a waste of their time. But they both operate under the assumption that not only can they never be wrong about anything, but that even entertaining the possibility that they are wrong is an attack against them. Ultimately, these are two different opposing groups of close-minded, anti-intellectual people. This is ultimately why Millennial Woes himself had to say that I was doing the meme in order to attack the meme, when all you have is the ability to deflect. Doubling down on that deflection is all you can do. Now, it is one possibility that I am actually pretending not to understand things. Now, I'm not, but from his point of view, that's the only possibility, that I know what he's saying and I'm pretending not to know. And he claims that's the only possibility, because that means I must be a malicious actor, and that gives him a license to treat me as such. That's why the right-wingers make this claim. It's not because it's true, it's simply a handy way to tell themselves that they're now justified in treating their enemies in a way that normally they wouldn't be. It's like that Antifa clip from earlier, where Antifa will call people fascist to give themselves the license to treat their targets like fascists, whether or not it's actually true. Millennial Woes is doing the same thing here. Of course, another possibility is that I genuinely don't understand. Now, I personally think I have some grasp of how all this works, but if I am actually ignorant and not simply malicious, then suddenly the morality of how he should treat me has to change, and you can't have that. A third possibility is that I do actually understand, and I'm not pretending not to. What's actually happening is that there's a real point of contention here, but his ideology can't accept that either. You know how the communists like to say that if only people were properly educated on communism, they would be communists themselves? As if there can be no true values differences, no true disagreements, only a divide between the ignorant and the educated? You know what? White nationalists work the same way. They definitionally can't be wrong from their point of view. So anyone who disagrees with them is either an enemy or an idiot. By the way, this is why I continue to insist that 2015 Sargon was once solidly in the liberal camp, even if 2025 Sargon is a full-on reactionary now. Because Sargon back in 2015 completely agreed with my take on Millennial Woes, how his ideology functions with a lot of overlaps with Marxism from the liberal point of view. Here's a quick clip from Sargon's 2015 video on Millennial Woes' debate with Mike Isaacson, a Marxist professor and co-founder of the Antifa organization Smash Racism DC.
Okay, so me and V just watched Millennial Woes Hangout with Mike Isaacson, known to the internet as Professor Giraffe, and holy shit, does it confirm a lot of what I've been reading. What was your opinion on it, V?
I can see why Hitler was courting the Marxists. They're so easy to flip.
That's literally what I said to you in the chat, you thieving...
No. This is... This is literally what I just came up with. And
you-
will not steal this from me.
Do you know that I'm recording the screen, and on the screen right now is my comment saying that to you?
Oh, are you coach red pilling me?
Like, almost all of it. He fundamentally agreed with almost everything Woes said, apart from the nationalism. I can't believe how much he agreed with Woes on. And the thing is, right, okay, so in HYUK in The Road to Serfdom goes on about how the Nazis and communists used to change faction constantly, and I'm getting through Mein Kampf as well, and towards on page I think it's 162. Oh no, here we are, 165. He talks about how the bourgeois politicians could never poach any of the Marxists, obviously. And so basically what he thinks is that he could do it, effectively. He seems to think that basically what you need to do is, if you're going to use force, as in street fighting, in this particular case with Mike Isaacson, then you need to have a moral justification for it, obviously, which is what Isaacson's doing. And that's all of the conditions met, so all you need to do, really, is put some kind of pressure on them to get them to flip. And that's actually really fucking scary, because I don't really want Antifa suddenly all going alt-right, because they're fucking loons.
Of course, Sargon's changed a lot since those days. Nowadays, Sargon does the meme himself. For example, when the Tenet Media lawsuit came down the pipeline, Sargon asked a very innocent-sounding question. So, are American citizens not allowed to accept foreign money? Let's play the game again, guys. Is he pretending not to understand, or is he genuinely not understanding? Ignorant or malicious? Place your bets now. Let's begin with this. If you actually bother to read the indictment, the Tenet Media lawsuit was about a FARA violation, FARA being the Foreign Agent Registration Act, meaning even if you're a lobbyist on behalf of another country's interests, the First Amendment protections of the Constitution still apply. You simply have to register as a foreign agent with the government, so that what you're doing is on public record. This is why, for example, AIPAC is legal, that pro-Israel lobby that people are constantly schizo-posting about. It and its members are registered under FARA. All of what they do is public and transparent. To contrast, nobody involved in the Tenet Media scandal were registered under FARA, while Tenet Media was taking money from the Russian government and funneling it to multiple right-wing influencers, including Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, Benny Johnson, Matt Christensen, and Lauren Southern. These people didn't know the source of Tenet's money, but Lauren Chen and her husband did, making Tenet's actions, as well as theirs, a possible FARA violation. That is why the Tenet lawsuit was filed. Not because, as Sargon innocently asks, American citizens aren't allowed to accept foreign money, but because there is a procedure in place to keep such transfers of money transparent, and in this case, it wasn't followed. So, is Sargon pretending not to know this, or does he genuinely not know? Well, if he genuinely doesn't know, he probably shouldn't be commenting on it. Or at least he should make it a lot more clear that he's asking this question in good faith, because this just reads like a gotcha. And if he's pretending not to know this, but he actually does, well, then he's doing the meme, which leads to all the other stuff that we've already discussed. At the end of the day, the Millennial Woes meme is just another example in a long, long line of examples, each of them with their own similar lore, where right-wingers convince themselves that only they truly understand things. Every time they post it, they're signaling to their in-group that they are a member of the elect. From their point of view, it's impossible for reasonable minds to disagree with them, ironically making discourse also impossible, because all points of contention aren't truly points of contention. No contention actually exists. They're actually just subversion from their evil enemies, who deep in their hearts know they're wrong, but they keep subverting because they're evil. But in reality, it's just lazy anti-intellectualism from a loud minority of retards who don't like the fact that their ideas get challenged, who don't like the fact that their ideas can't stand up to scrutiny, and so they have to define all of their challengers as evil. And even though we're talking about right-wingers, yes, the woke left behaves in the exact same way. I hate the woke right label, but once again, it does point at a real phenomenon. These people do just act like the old school SJWs we all hated back in the day. They're just as bad, and they need to be treated in the exact same way. Alright guys, that about does it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to hear me yap about something else, head over to the side channel, where Naomi and I watched Wicked Part 2, otherwise known as Wicked for Good, and we talk about it for a while. I will see you over there, guys. Have a good one. I love you.